Before the Bible, before Greek mythology, before Egypt reached the height of its power, there was another creation story, a story written on clay nearly 4,000 years ago. It tells of a goddess older than the heavens, a mother, a monster, or perhaps history's first misunderstood queen. Her name was Tiamat. Every legend belongs to a civilization. To understand Tiamat, we must first return to the civilization that imagined her, the ancient world of Mesopotamia. Between two great rivers, where fertile plains met endless desert, one of humanity's first civilizations emerged. In time, it raised some of our earliest cities: Ur, Uruk, Babylon, and Nineveh. Kings ruled from towering temples known as ziggurats, priests read meaning into the heavens, and scribes pressed wedge-shaped symbols into wet clay. These symbols, cuneiform, preserved the myths, laws, and histories of a people for thousands of years. And among the most remarkable of these texts is the Enūma Eliš, the Babylonian creation epic, and the oldest voice through which Tiamat's story reaches us. Written on 7 clay tablets around the 2nd millennium BCE, it was recited each year during the Akitu, the New Year festival, honoring both creation and the divine authority of Babylon's patron god, Marduk. Its title comes from its opening words, "When on high." Then the tablets carry us further back, beyond kings, beyond cities, beyond memory itself, to a universe that did not yet exist. No mountains, no oceans as we know them, no sky, no stars, no seasons. Time itself had yet to begin. There was only an endless expanse of water. This, the Babylonians imagined, was the very beginning. 2 vast cosmic forces moving in the dark. The first was Apsu, the fresh water deep beneath the earth. The second was Tiamat, the immense saltwater sea stretching into infinity. In the eyes of the myth, these were not merely water, they were living divine beings. Fresh water fed the crops that sustained entire kingdoms. Beyond the river mouths, the endless salt sea represented mystery, danger, and forces no one could control. Together they held perfect balance. No conflict, no order, no chaos, only limitless potential. And from their union, the myth tells us, the first gods emerged, setting into motion events that would change the cosmos forever. Unlike later stories where a single god makes the universe from nothing, the Enūma Eliš imagines creation as something that unfolds slowly, through generations. Life born from life. Order emerging from an older, untamed world. Yet the same story that begins in balance would soon remember something darker. The first great conflict, a struggle between the old powers and the new that would reshape everything. As new generations of gods came into being, the primordial stillness began to fade. The younger deities were restless, curious, alive with energy, and as they moved through the cosmos, they filled the once silent deep with noise and motion. To Apsu and Tiamat, who had known only calm since the beginning, this was something the ancient balance had never held. According to the Enūma Eliš, Apsu grew weary of the disturbance and resolved to destroy the younger gods and return the universe to silence. Tiamat refused. However restless they had become, these were her children, and she pleaded for patience, hoping peace could hold without bloodshed. But the myth had already turned. One of the young gods, Enki, also called Ea, learned of Apsu's plan. Renowned in the epic for wisdom and magic, he struck first. With a powerful enchantment, he cast Apsu into a deep sleep and killed him. The threat was ended, but the ancient order was broken. Where Apsu had ruled, Enki built his sacred dwelling, and there he and his consort Damkina would become the parents of Marduk, the god the story marks for greatness. For Tiamat, Apsu's loss was more than grief. It was the death of the world as it had first existed, and grief, as the myth remembers it, gave way to something harder. Those who believed the young gods had gone too far gathered around her, urging her to answer Apsu's death. At first, she resisted. She had brought life into being, not destruction. But betrayal reshapes even the gentlest hands. In time, she chose. No longer only the mother of creation, she would become the heart of a rebellion unlike anything the cosmos had witnessed. And from the primordial sea, she would raise forces no god had ever faced. The death of Apsu marked a turning point in the story of the gods. The balance that had held since creation was gone, and what began as a quarrel between generations became a struggle for the cosmos itself. Tiamat, once revered as the mother of all the gods, stood at a crossroads. In the Enūma Eliš, her transformation is sudden and profound. The nurturing creator becomes the commander of a celestial rebellion. Yet whether that change reveals her true nature, or only the perspective of those who later told the tale, is a question scholars still explore. According to the epic, she resolved to avenge Apsu, but not alone. Drawing on the boundless power of the primordial sea, she raised an army unlike anything the universe had seen. This is where the myth gives chaos a face. Babylonian scribes described terrifying beings rising from the waters, serpents with venom for blood, dragons whose presence bred fear, horned beasts and lions, scorpion men and fish men, shapes that blurred animal, human, and divine. These were never simple monsters. They were how an ancient people imagined the untamed forces of the world, the storms, floods, and darkness that ruled long before civilization pressed order onto the earth. At their head, Tiamat named a champion, Kingu. Little of him survives outside the epic, yet she raised him above the other gods, declared him her consort, and entrusted him with one of the most powerful objects in creation, the Tablets of Destiny. To the Babylonians, these were divine authority itself, the power to set order, rule the gods, and decide the fate of the universe. Whoever held them held the right to reign. With Kingu bearing that authority and a monstrous army behind her, Tiamat prepared for war. News of the rebellion spread, and fear took hold. Tiamat was no ordinary goddess. Older than the heavens, the living sea from which all life had come. One by one, the gods hesitated. None believed they could survive. But one among them saw not only danger, but opportunity. His name was Marduk. As Tiamat's army massed across the primordial waters, fear moved through the younger gods. One after another, they refused to face her. They had seen her power. They knew she was older than creation, and to challenge her was to challenge the force the universe was born from. Even Anu, god of the heavens, went out to meet her and turned back, and the divine assembly fell silent. Then one figure stepped forward, Marduk. Son of Enki and Damkina, he was unlike any god before him. The Enūma Eliš paints him in almost impossible terms, extraordinary in wisdom, unmatched in strength, radiant enough to make the gods look on in awe. 4 eyes that saw every direction. 4 ears that heard every whisper of heaven. Fire spilling from his lips whenever he spoke. Whether the scribes meant these wonders literally or as symbols, the message was the same. Marduk was made for greatness, yet he would not fight for glory alone. He named a single price. If he defeated Tiamat and saved the cosmos, every god would name him supreme ruler. His word would become law. The gods waited, gathered for a great feast, debated the fate of the universe, and agreed. To test him, they set a garment before him and bid him destroy it with a word. He spoke, and it vanished. He spoke again, and it returned, exactly as before. The assembly erupted, crowned him champion, and named him king to come. But words alone would not undo Tiamat, and Marduk turned to prepare for a battle unlike any the universe had seen. Marduk armed himself for a war that would decide creation. He took up a great bow, fastened a shining mace at his side, lightning wrapped around him, flame ran before him. But his deadliest weapons were neither forged nor carved, they were the winds. He summoned the 4, then the 7, until the heavens churned with storms strong enough to shake existence itself. Riding a divine chariot drawn by 4 fearsome creatures, he advanced. Before him stretched an endless ocean of darkness, and at its center waited the primordial goddess, ringed by the monstrous host she had made. Beside her stood Kingu, bearing the tablets of destiny. The armies faced each other in silence. Then Marduk spoke, naming her the bringer of chaos. She answered with fury. As she opened her vast jaws to swallow him, he loosed the winds. The tempest rushed into her mouth and held it open, and in that single moment he released his arrow. It flew true and pierced her heart. The mother from whom all things had come fell silent. Her army scattered, Kingu was taken, and the tablets wrested from him and claimed by Marduk. The younger gods rejoiced. Certain order had defeated chaos. But the myth was not finished, and neither was Marduk. Rather than let her body drift forever through the waters, he chose to transform it. From her defeat, a new universe would be born. With Tiamat defeated and the tablets reclaimed, silence returned to the waters. The gods stood victorious, yet the universe was still unmade. No sky, no earth, no mountains, no rivers, only the lifeless body of the goddess on the endless sea. According to the Enūma Eliš, Marduk looked upon her and conceived an extraordinary plan. Rather than let her vanish, he made her the fabric of creation. He split her body into 2 great halves. From one he stretched the heavens, from the other he formed the earth, and fixed the sky so the waters above could never again drown the world below. Then he set the cosmos in motion, the paths of the stars, the constellations to mark the seasons, the moon on its monthly journey, the sun rising and setting in perfect order. Now time had meaning. Rivers ran, mountains climbed, valleys settled, every part of the world arranged by design. Yet one task remained. Even victorious, the gods labored without end to keep the universe they had won, and so they wanted servants. Marduk turned to king. For leading the rebellion, he was put to death, and from his blood mixed with clay, humanity was made. Unlike later traditions that crown humankind the pinnacle of creation, the Babylonian story tells it differently. People were made to carry the burdens of the gods, to work the land, tend the temples, and uphold the order forged in the great cosmic war. With the world complete and humanity in place, the gods proclaimed Marduk their eternal king. Babylon became his sacred city. The age of creation had ended. The age of civilization had begun. But modern scholarship asks a very different question. Was Tiamat really evil? For thousands of years, the Enūma Eliš was read as a story of order triumphing over chaos. Marduk, the heroic protector. Tiamat, the monstrous enemy. But the deeper scholars look, the less certain that verdict becomes. Many Assyriologists note that she begins the epic not as a destroyer, but as a creator. She gives birth to the gods. She defends her children when Apsu would destroy them. Only after Apsu is killed does she choose war. Seen this way, her actions read less as chaos than as grief, vengeance, and resistance against a younger generation that overthrew the old order. Other scholars point to a political purpose. By the time the epic reached its final form, Babylon had risen to dominate Mesopotamia, and raising Marduk above every other god reinforced Babylon's own authority. Tiamat's defeat came to mean more than the making of the world. It stood for the triumph of Babylon's patron god over older traditions and rival faiths. In that reading, the story is not only mythology, it is theology. and perhaps even royal propaganda. None of this lessens the beauty of the Enūma Eliš. It only reminds us that myths reveal as much about the people who tell them as about the gods they describe. Whether we see her as a goddess of creation, the embodiment of untamed nature, or a figure reshaped by political power, Tiamat remains one of the most fascinating in all mythology, her story still challenging us, not because it offers easy answers, but because it asks timeless questions about power, order, memory, and the price of victory. Nearly 4,000 years have passed since the Enūma Eliš was first recited, and still Tiamat has never truly disappeared. Her image echoes through the myths that came after her. Across the ancient Near East, stories of a storm god battling a monster of the sea grew strikingly common. The Hebrew Bible speaks of Leviathan, a great creature of the deep. In Canaanite myth, the storm god Baal battles Yam, god of the sea. Similar tales surface across cultures, each wrestling with the same struggle, order against the untamed forces of nature. Whether they share a single ancient root or arose on their own is still debated, but the echoes are unmistakable. In the modern world, Tiamat never really left. She simply changed shape. She surges through modern fantasy literature as a primordial dragon and a devouring sea. In tabletop role-playing games, most famously Dungeons & Dragons, she reigns as a five-headed dragon queen, mother of all evil dragons, lifted almost straight from the Babylonian original. She stalks video games as both boss and cosmic force. And more quietly, she lives in the very idea of the dragon itself, the world-ending serpent so much of fantasy inherited from myths like hers. In nearly every version, she appears as a dragon queen or an ancient force of destruction. The serpent and dragon form the oldest tablets never fixed, imagined and reimagined by every age that inherited her. Yet behind every retelling lies the memory of one of humanity's oldest surviving creation myths, a story preserved not on paper, but on clay, one that has outlasted empires, wars, and the passing of millennia. And through it all, Tiamat endures, not only as a goddess, but as a reminder that every civilization reaches for the same enduring question. How did our world begin? Long before history was written, before kings built empires, before humanity first looked to the stars, there was Tiamat. Whether remembered as the mother of creation, the queen of chaos, or a goddess whose story was rewritten by those who claimed victory, her legacy remains woven into the foundations of civilization itself. But her defeat was also a beginning. A young god had risen from obscurity to rule heaven and earth. His name was Marduk, and in our next documentary, we'll follow how one god's victory reshaped not only Babylonian myth, but the religious and political world of the ancient Near East. Until then, remember, the echoes of the past are never truly silent. This is Lorevia Echoes.